Hey guys, I'm David DeMuzio.
And I'm Steve Cook.
This is Hair Loss Hope, and today we're going to talk about presidential hair loss, or presidents that have hair, have had hair transplants, and why, if you're thinking about going into politics, you might want to think about your hair too. So let's go with the most recent first. So President Joe Biden.
Yeah, well, Joe Biden, he must have had his hair transplant about 25 to 30 years ago. If you look at video or photos when he was a senator, I think it was in the late 80s, it actually didn't look too good. One reason was, of course, the technology at the time, but also the darker hair. He had a little bit of the graying, but it was a darker hair. If you look at him now, it's not too bad. I
Mhm.
mean, it's actually not too bad. And a big reason for that is that his hair has turned completely white. So Joe Biden's era of hair transplants was the plugs. As a matter of fact, I would guess that based on being in Delaware, and there was a doctor that I had known years ago who was considered the best plug doctor in the history of the US. His name was Dr. Whiting, and he did just about every politician in the DC area. So I would guess, that's just a guess, but he did great work. So Lucky Joe got great work. But of course, because of plugs, he ran out of donor hair. So he doesn't have a whole lot of hair in the crown, and he kind of grows it a little bit longer and combs it back. And it, to me, I don't know about you, but looks pretty good.
Yeah, it does. So something people don't think about a lot, especially us young guys, is actually a hair transplant. And this is a kind of an advantage. It actually looks best on a white guy with white hair. Black guy with white hair, not as much. It's going to be actually just the opposite because the contrast is what's going to make the hair look thinner. So a guy with lighter skin, once your hair goes white, your hair will actually look more dense.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, there's no question about it. White hair is very difficult to do on a hair transplant patient. As a matter of fact, they have to use what's called backlighting when they're dissecting the tissue. And to do FUE on a stark white, like Santa Claus gray hair, is very challenging. Not a lot of clinics can do it. But once
Hmm.
it's done, it's literally like doubling the amount of density you have because the white skin and the white hair is what we call a lack of contrast. By contrast, no pun intended, the darker the hair and the lighter the skin, that is a stark contrast. And we tell everybody to plan on two procedures anyway. But if you've got dark hair and light skin, you're going to see the skin through the less dense hair than Mother Nature. But in a gentleman with the gray hair, you won't notice that as much.
I've actually just started to get my first couple of little white hairs on the side of my head. And I'm actually kind of excited about it just because I know how hair transplants work. And I thought, oh, wow, with that salt and pepper look, that's actually a great look for a hair transplant. Actually, it does that same type of thing where you have that look of density, but with even less hair. So,
Yeah, I mean, if you look at any woman that goes and gets highlights done, in my opinion, what it does, it kind of breaks up just one color, and it's very attractive. It kind of lightens up her face. It makes it look like she's got more hair because your eye can't really focus on just one color. By the same token, what
or
David
you
just
mean
said,
by two colors, right?
by two colors,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So with the salt and pepper in itself, if I had to make a choice, I would be, salt and pepper for me because that's breaking up the one color. But as people that are friends of mine would say, well, you got pretty much just all salt. There's not a whole lot of pepper.
No pepper. I wanted to also talk about presidents and hair because it was just something I started thinking about as well after Joe Biden got elected president. I was like, man, he's got hair, and now that I was thinking back, and I thought well, all the presidents actually during my lifetime have all had pretty good hair. The worst was during my lifetime was George Bush, but even still, like when you picture him, and he was quite older, pretty
Yes.
old guy. Still for his age, his natural hair that was pretty good. He's definitely a guy with hair. So I started looking back throughout presidents, and the last president in the United States that was bald was actually Dwight D. Eisenhower. So the hair has varied a little bit. What's funny is yeah, like I said, the last, I don't know, about 40 years or so, the hair's been sort of better than ever. The more we are visually seeing our president, and it goes back, the better their hair is, or the better we elect presidents with hair. So if you go back to Dwight D. Eisenhower, he was our last bald president. What's funny is he was elected in 1953. And so in 1950, I looked up, only 9% of all of the households in the US owned TVs. So hardly anyone owned a TV, at that point. So it's interesting that after him, no more bald presidents. We don't want bald guys as our presidents, apparently.
It wasn't just no more bald presidents. I mean, are you kidding me? Talk about the hair. John F. Kennedy.
Yeah.
And John F. Kennedy Jr. I had to throw that in.
Yeah.
Some of the coolest hair I've ever seen. He wasn't president, but unfortunately we lost him. But he was my hero of hair. Then you've got Ronald Reagan.
Bill Clinton, incredible hair.
Bill Clinton had incredible hair. Barack Obama had pretty good hair too.
Even Donald Trump. I mean, it's weird looking hair, but boy, he's sure got a lot of it.
Trying to figure that out. I don't know. I have no idea if he had some hair work done, meaning surgical work, but I mean, yeah, he's got hair. And, I tried to figure it out. I went back to The Apprentice and all that. And he's kind of stabilized, for all these years. And I don't know. The jury's still out on that one.
Yeah, George W. Bush, pretty good hair. Richard Nixon, he had the recession there on the sides, but still definitely a guy you think of having hair. So it is quite interesting because what are the percentages of guys that are over 50? I think it's around 50% of guys over 50 are experiencing male pattern baldness.
That is a correct number. And I don't know where I heard this, but I do know that politicians, as they go through the process of becoming politicians, their promoters, their campaign managers, the different Republican, Democratic parties, they do like to go after the men, at least for this conversation, that have hair.
Yeah, if I was to make a bet, I would say that if Joe Biden was a completely bald guy, Donald Trump would still be the president. Yeah.
You never know.
So that I'd be willing to bet on that.
Good bet.